So, John, let's see, what are some of the ways that you can get automatic bilge pump operation in your boat?
Well, there are a couple of ways to add automatic operation.
Okay.
One, actually, is quite simply upgrading to a pump that has a bilge switch built into it, like this Rule-Made 1500.
Okay, so how does this work? It's got a centrifugal bilge pump, and what else does it have in it?
It has a float switch built into it. In fact, you can probably hear it flopping or flipping.
Got it.
Built inside.
Okay, so that's a non-mercury bilge pump switch.
Correct.
The old switches used to have a little capsule of mercury as they'd go up and down, and while they work pretty well, when you dispose of them, you're disposing of a hazardous chemical, so those are basically off the market,
Yeah.
and this uses a different technique. Okay, so we can use a bilge pump that has built into it one of these switches. Are there other ways to do the same thing?
Sure. You can just simply add an automatic float switch to your existing pump.
Okay. So this would mount in the bilge adjacent to the pump,
Yes.
right? The bilge water comes up, this floats up,
And trips.
it trips, and then it turns on the switch, turns on the pump until the water level goes down
Exactly.
and turns the pump off automatically.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is a relatively simple installation, but I have to tell you about one quick exception. When you have an automatic pump, it requires 3 wires. The ground wire, one for manual operation and one for automatic operation. And you'll notice, for example, on this bilge mate, it's got 3 wires on it. So you may have to run an additional wire to the bilge pump to accommodate the automatic operation. Now, this would be an example of a dashboard switch or instrument panel switch that you'd use for this.
Yes.
So this has 3 positions. It has an off position, an automatic position, and then it has a manual position. And sometimes the manual positions are momentary contact. In other words, you have to push and hold against spring tension because they don't want you locking your pump on all the time. And in addition, it's got a place for a fuse so that the circuit is fused. And this is where your 3 wires would run up to this panel switch. Okay, and I've also heard that there's some switches that are entirely electronic. In fact, this would be an example of one, right?
Exactly.
In this case, it uses some sort of electronic wizardry to sense when water is in contact with it. It turns on, and then a neat feature of some of the electronic switches is that when it turns off, it waits a couple of seconds extra to get that last little bit of water out and then shuts down the pump. So that's an option you might consider.
Great.
Hey, one of the things that we didn't mention earlier was the idea of having a high water alarm, like this one from Rule. This is a high water bilge alarm. What's the idea here?
Oh, good question. For, say, a cruising vessel, you would place this alarm switch at a higher level than the existing bilge pump, and this would be triggered for when water's coming in faster than the pump can pump out, or, say, a switch or a pump itself has actually failed.
Okay, so this can alert you to a failure in your current bilge pump, or possibly you got a serious leak that you've got to deal with. That's an interesting idea, and I imagine this would wake the dead if it were to go off.
Yeah, this is an 85 decibel alarm. Can't miss it. Really signals you if there's a problem.
Good. Well, thanks very much. Hey, we know we've tried to cover a lot of ground in a relatively short period of time. We've talked about replacing your bilge pump with an identical one. We've talked about ways to upgrade your existing pump by going to one with a larger hose diameter, possibly one that uses more electricity, or one that has a different strainer base. We've talked about how to make your existing pump more efficient by trying to keep the hoses short distance and to use good, tight, waterproof butt splices, as well as talking about how to add automatic operation or possibly a high water bilge alarm to your existing installation. Well, it's been our pleasure to put this on. My thanks to John Moran.
Thank you.
And we hope that you enjoy this West Advisor Do-It-Yourself project video. We're going to post this and all others on westmarine.com, where you can find out great product information and great project information. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you out on the water.